Listen. The entire city has fallen quiet. This is not the serene silence of midnight that you know. It is a heavier, more oppressive stillness, as if the very air itself is holding its breath. The sounds of children playing in the alleyways, the calls of flower girls, the boisterous songs from the taverns, they have all vanished. In their place is a vast, invisible silence, a silence named fear. The shadow of the Black Death, like a tangible, viscous black fog, is shrouding every street, every rooftop in this city. And you, in the center of this silent city that is being consumed by the plague, have made a decision that will change your life forever. This was not a choice born of great heroism. Nor was it a lofty sacrifice filled with idealism. Perhaps you were just an ordinary physician, with a little medical knowledge, who could not bear to watch your fellow citizens die in agony and so chose to step forward. Or perhaps you were just a young person who had lost your land and livelihood to war or famine, and before the city's recruitment notice, with its unbelievably high salary, you chose to make a great wager with your own life. Whatever the reason, the result is the same. You have accepted the contract. You are to become this city's newly hired plague doctor. Now, let our consciousness travel to the day of your appointment. You walk into a dimly lit room in the city hall. Inside, a few officials are seated, their faces haggard and solemn. There is not a trace of joy in their eyes, only a heavy sense of pity, the look one gives to yet another young person voluntarily walking into their own grave. You can smell the acrid scent in the air, a mixture of vinegar and herbs that have been repeatedly used to fumigate the room. This is the only method they can think of to purify the air and ward off the miasma. You sign your name on a short contract, written on a thick piece of parchment. You see your own handwriting, under the weak candlelight, trembling slightly. Then, they lead you to another room. This is the place where you will bid farewell to the ordinary person you once were. This is the place where you will don your famous armor, the one that will accompany you through all the days and nights to come. In the center of the room stands a wooden mannequin. Upon it, a complete set of protective clothing has been prepared for you, designed and improved by the most famous French physician of the time, Charles de Lorme, and considered to be the most effective defense against the plague. You begin, with a solemn and slow rhythm, almost like a religious ritual, to put on your new identity. First, is a heavy, ankle-length robe. It is sewn from multiple layers of goat leather or canvas. To better insulate it from the air, the entire robe has been repeatedly soaked in fragrant wax and left to dry. You touch this robe, and you can feel its unique texture, as tough as leather, but also slightly greasy and stiff from being saturated with wax. You can smell the rich and unique scent emanating from it, a mixture of wax, leather, and some unknown herbs. You put it on. It is very, very heavy. You feel its immense weight pressing down on your shoulders. You feel as if you have been instantly sealed into an isolated, airtight shell. Next, come the gloves and the tall boots. They, too, are made of thick, waxed leather. You carefully, thoroughly, encase your hands and feet. Then, a wide-brimmed, black hat. You place it on your head. The wide brim casts a shadow over your eyes, making your view of the world seem a bit darker. Finally, they bring you the most central, and most bizarre, component of the entire outfit, the famous, long, beak-like mask. This mask is also made of stiff leather. Its eyes are fitted with two round, red glass lenses. You place this mask over your face. Through the two red glass lenses, you see the entire world instantly dyed in an ominous, strange hue, the color of blood. You look at yourself in a mirror and can no longer recognize your own form. What you see is a non-human, eerie creature, like some mysterious, long-beaked bird from mythology. And the most important part of this mask is its hollow beak, half a foot long. An elderly official opens a wooden box. You see that inside the box, in separate compartments, are more than a dozen different fragrant spices and herbs. He begins, with a small pair of tweezers, to fill the beak of your mask with these things, one by one. First, cloves. You smell their warm, spicy, almost sweet aroma. Then, mint. That cool, refreshing scent that can pierce through anything. Next, camphor. A strong, penetrating, almost medicinal smell. And also, rose petals, juniper berries, and a small piece of the extremely precious ambergris, a substance from Wales, which has a strange oceanic scent. All of these things are packed tightly into that long beak. In that era, it was widely believed that the plague was spread through miasma, the foul, harmful odors in the air. Therefore, the sole purpose of this beaked mask was to filter the air. Every breath you take must first pass through these fragrant, highly volatile spices. Now, you are fully attired. You take a deep breath. An incredibly complex, incredibly strong, and incredibly strange aroma instantly fills your nostrils, your throat, your lungs. It is a scent that is warm, spicy, cool, sweet, and bitter all at once, an unprecedentedly powerful smell. This scent makes you a little dizzy. But at the same time, it makes you feel an unprecedented sense of being protected, of absolute safety. Because you know, from now on, in this city shrouded by the stench of death, this unique fragrance from your beaked mask will be the only clean, safe air you can trust. It is your armor, and it is your sanctuary. You stand there, motionless. Listen, the sound of your own breathing, inside that sealed mask, has become incredibly loud, incredibly clear. The sound of your inhalations and exhalations is like a great bellows, and it is the only sound you can hear at this moment. You feel that you are no longer the person you were before. You have become a symbol. A walking, fragrant amulet. An isolated, lonely guardian, about to face death head-on. Your journey is about to begin. You are about to push open this door and walk into the silent, waiting city. And for now, just allow your consciousness to rest in this unique, protected tranquility. Feel the heavy weight of the thick robe on your body. See the strange, red-tinted world through your eyes. And most importantly, feel that rich and reassuring, unique fragrance of cloves, mint, and camphor with every single breath. Within the embrace of this fragrance, allow your body and mind to find a most deep, most thorough, and secluded rest. That unique, rich fragrance, a mixture of cloves, mint, and camphor, envelopes your every breath. It is both your armor and your sanctuary. Within the protection of this scent, your heart gradually, steadily, calms. You feel that you are no longer the person you were before. You have become a symbol. A walking, fragrant amulet. An isolated, lonely guardian, about to face the world. Now, you reach out with your hand, encased in its thick leather glove, and gently push open the heavy wooden door before you. The door opens slowly, with a low, long creak. You step outside. The morning street appears before you. But it is completely different from any normal morning you remember. The first thing you feel is the silence. A vast, deep, unnatural silence. You cannot hear the familiar calls of the vendors as the market opens. You cannot hear the cheerful laughter of housewives greeting each other as they draw water from the well. And you certainly cannot hear the crisp, lively sound of children's footsteps as they chase each other on the stone-paved road. All of it has vanished. In its place is a heavy silence that feels almost tangible, a stillness that permeates the very air. Your feet land on the cobblestones, which are covered in dust and damp, fallen leaves. The sound of your own footsteps, in this vast silence, is amplified, sounding exceptionally lonely and clear. The heavy, waxed robe you are wearing also makes a slight, continuous rustling sound as it brushes against the ground, a sound like a low whisper. Besides your own sounds, the only other things you can hear are the subtle noises of this sleeping city. For instance, when a breeze blows, an unlatched wooden shutter on a second floor is moved by the wind, making a listless, dull thump against the window frame. Or perhaps a solitary, unnamed bird, also feeling the loneliness, lands on the roof of a distant church, lets out a few tentative, short chirps, and then, receiving no reply, falls silent once again. And beneath all these subtle sounds, there is a grander, more constant, and more strangely reassuring background noise. Listen. Dong. It is the slow tolling of a bell from the distant church tower, a bell that rings for the departed. Dong. This tolling is not hurried. Each time it rings, it leaves a long, humming, metallic resonance in the air. And then, just as the resonance is about to fade completely, the next toll sounds again, unhurriedly. Dong. This sound has become the only steady, beating heart of this silent city. You begin your work for the day. You walk slowly, forward, along the street. In your hand, you hold a long wooden cane. As you walk, the cane occasionally taps gently on the ground, making a crisp, rhythmic sound. You see that the shops on both sides of the street are tightly shuttered. The market stalls, which once displayed a dazzling array of goods, are now abandoned, their wooden frames already askew from the wind and rain. A wooden barrel of apples has overturned in the gutter. The once plump, red apples are now rotten and black, emitting a sour, fermented smell. You walk to the front of a bakery that once wafted the most enticing aroma. Now, all that remains is a cold smell of mold and dust. A few rats dart out from the shadows at your feet and disappear into the darkness on the other side. They are among the few remaining residents of this city that are still full of vitality. You see that on the wooden doors of some houses, a crude, black cross has been drawn with charcoal. This is a mark, and also a warning. It tells all who pass by that within this house lives a patient, visited by the plague. You stop in front of a door marked with a cross. You raise the cane in your hand and use its tip to knock gently on the door 3 times. The sound is exceptionally loud on the quiet street. After a moment, the door opens a small crack. The face of a male servant, full of fear and exhaustion, appears in the opening. His mouth is tightly covered with a cloth. He sees your unique, intimidating attire, says nothing, but silently opens the door fully, then takes several steps back to make way for you. You step inside. You smell it. The moment you open the door, the scent of sickness from within this home rushes towards you. It is a mixture of cold sweat, filth, and an indescribable, sweetish smell of life in decay. The strong fragrance of the spices in your mask, at this moment, becomes your most solid, spiritual line of defense. It isolates you from those unclean odors, allowing you to maintain your inner calm and focus. The servant points you toward a dim bedroom in the back of the house. You enter. You see a woman, lying quietly on the bed. Her skin is a pale, waxy color. Below her neck is a noticeable, red, angry-looking swelling. Her eyes are tightly closed. But you can see her eyelids fluttering slightly. Her body is being tormented by a high fever. Her breathing is very shallow, very weak. You walk to the bedside. You do not use your hands to touch her directly. You extend your wooden cane, and with its tip, you very, very gently, touch the swelling. You feel a burning, hard sensation transmitted from the end of the cane. Then, you withdraw the cane, and you give a slight nod to the woman's husband, who is standing nearby, his eyes filled with a mixture of hope and despair. You nod, not because you have found any cure. You nod simply because it is what people expect you to do. It is a silent, ritualistic gesture, indicating that you have completed your diagnosis. You do not need to say much. Because your voice, filtered through that long beak, becomes muffled and strange, as if from another world. You simply, in a calm, low tone, mutter something about the ancient medical theory of an imbalance of the humors. Then, from your medicine pouch, you take out some crushed, dried herbs and give them to the husband. You advise him to burn some rosemary in the corners of the room to purify the air. You also suggest that he place a sliced onion near the bed, as it is said that this can absorb the harmful miasma from the air. The husband takes the herbs from your hand with a look of near tearful gratitude. He thanks you, as if you have just offered him ultimate salvation. And you know, you have not. All you can offer is a small, procedural, ritualistic, and ultimately insignificant comfort in a moment of despair. You exit the room. In your notebook, with a quill pen, you record this visit. You do not write down the family's name. Because a name would make all of this too personal. And you cannot bear the weight of that personal emotion. You simply, briefly, record the address, and some basic observations about the symptoms. As you leave the house, you notice a small child, sitting motionless in the shadows of the hallway. His eyes follow your strange, black figure intently as you pass. There is no childish curiosity in his eyes, only a numb, quiet calm that is heart-wrenching in its maturity. You suspect that he, too, may already be infected. But you say nothing. Because what would be the point of saying anything? You step back out onto the quiet street, bathed in the morning light. You continue to walk forward. You hear the tolling of the distant church bell, still resonating, slow and steady. Dong! 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 This bell, it is both a farewell to the departed, and also, for you, this lonely guardian walking through the city of death, the only solemn rhythm to accompany your steps. Allow your consciousness now, to rest in this unique, deep and solemn tranquility, composed of the sound of this tolling bell. Feel the clear echo of your every step on the stone-paved road. Feel the safe, herb-scented air with your every breath. Feel the distant, ceaseless tolling of the bell, like the very heartbeat of the city. Your journey is filled with challenges, and also with sorrow. But your heart, at this moment, is calm, is focused. Because you know you are fulfilling your duty. In this lonely, guardian serenity, pause for a moment, and gather your peace. That distant tolling of the bell, like the very heartbeat of the city, continues to echo, slow and steady, in your ears. It is both a farewell to the departed, and a solemn rhythm to accompany you, the lonely guardian, on your rounds. Your heart, in this deep and solemn tranquility, is calm, is focused. Because you know you are fulfilling your duty. Now, allow your awareness to drift from the sense of sound, and to slowly, gently, shift to your sense of touch. You can feel that in your hand, encased in its thick leather glove, you are firmly holding a long, wooden cane. This cane is your other important, indispensable tool as a plague doctor. You feel its weight in your hand. It is not light, but it is not too heavy. It is a very solid, reliable, and just right weight. With your fingers, you gently rub the body of the cane. You can feel that the surface of the wood, from long use, has been polished until it is very smooth, very warm. It even seems to retain the faint warmth of your own palm. As you walk on the cobblestone streets, you use it to feel the way ahead. The tip of the cane makes a crisp, rhythmic tapping sound on the ground. This sound adds a steady rhythm to your lonely walk in this silent place. This wooden cane is not just an ordinary walking stick. It is the only safe medium through which you interact with this world full of sickness. You arrive at another house, one with a black cross painted on the door. You use the tip of the cane, in place of your knuckles, to knock on the door. When you enter the patient's room, you use it to gently lift the heavy blanket covering the person's body. You use it to very gently touch the red, hot swellings on the patient's body, to feel their hardness and their temperature. You might even use it to gently tap the bottom of a patient's foot, to see if there is still a response. This wooden cane maintains a necessary, respectful, and safe distance between you and the bodies that might carry the deadly contagion. It allows you to perform your duties while also protecting yourself to the greatest extent possible. And besides these practical uses, this wooden cane has also, gradually, become a silent symbol of your authority. When you hold it and appear before people, they know that you are here to help, that you are a professional, that you can be trusted. Now, let us follow you, and experience the process of you using your simple, yet ritualistic tools, to perform a healing. You come to a patient's bedside. This is a strongly built blacksmith. But at this moment, he is lying weakly on the bed, tormented by a high fever, muttering deliriously. His family looks at you with expectant eyes. They plead with you to perform a bloodletting for him. In that era, from the most brilliant and learned royal physicians to the most common traveling barber surgeons, everyone deeply believed in an ancient theory from Greece, the theory of the four humors. They believed that the human body was composed of four fluids: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. And that all diseases were caused by an imbalance among these four fluids. And bloodletting was the most direct and effective method to restore this balance. You open your medical kit. Your gloved hand fumbles inside. You take out a small, bronze lancet. You see, in the dim candlelight, the blade reflecting a small, cold, sharp glint of light. You do not begin immediately. First, you quietly place the lancet in the flame of an alcohol lamp to heat it. You can hear the faint, soft sizzling sound as the metal of the blade is heated by the flame. You can smell the unique scent of metal being scorched that fills the air. This is a necessary, purifying ritual. Then, you come to the patient's bedside. With your fingers, you find the vibrant, gently pulsing vein on his arm. You take out the lancet. Your movements are very steady. Your breath is very calm. With the tip of the blade, you make a small, precise incision on that vein. You see a stream of dark red, viscous blood emerge from the small wound. It drips into a white ceramic bowl that has been prepared below, making a rhythmic, dripping sound. You can feel that everyone in the room is holding their breath. They are all looking at you with a sense of awe, even reverence. Because, in their eyes, the work you are performing is incredibly sacred and mysterious. You are releasing the bad, poisonous, disease-causing blood from a healthy body. You are playing the role of something close to a god. When a suitable amount of blood has collected in the bowl, you press a clean cloth, soaked in herbs, onto the small wound. The bleeding stops. You see that the patient's breathing seems to have become a little more stable. The unnatural flush on his face, from the high fever, also seems to have subsided a little. His family looks at you with gratitude. And you just quietly pack up your tools. There is not a ripple in your heart. Because you know that all of this may not have any real healing effect. What you can offer is more of a powerful, spiritual comfort and hope, one that is brought to the patient and their family through this ancient, ritualistic, and mysterious act. In some cases, besides bloodletting, you also use another ancient therapy, cupping. You come to another patient's bedside. You see that her back is covered in some red, unsettling rashes. From your medicine pouch, you take out several small, round, glass jars. You light a small cotton ball soaked in alcohol, quickly pass it through the inside of a glass jar, and then swiftly press the jar onto the skin of the patient's back. You see that the air inside the jar, having been heated, is expelled, creating a vacuum. The jar then clings tightly to the skin. The skin at the edge of the jar's mouth is sucked into the jar, forming a small, red hill. This, too, is a symbolic therapy, aimed at drawing out the sickness. People believe that the suction of the jar could draw out the dampness, coldness, and even the evil spirits that cause disease, out through the pores. You use the same method to place several of these small glass jars on the patient's back. You feel the room fill with the warm, reassuring scent of burning alcohol. You see the glass jars, like little, transparent, glowing mushrooms, clinging quietly to the patient's back. 10 minutes later, you press your finger gently on the skin at the edge of the jar's mouth, allowing air to re-enter. With a soft pop, the jar comes off the skin. You see that where the jar was, a round, deep purple mark is left behind. To the people of that time, this was powerful evidence that the sickness had been successfully drawn out. Besides these mysterious therapies, more often, what you do is a more practical and gentle application of herbal poultices. From your medicine pouch, you take out some dried, fragrant plants. There is chamomile, elderflower, and some other nameless herbs that you learned about from your mother, which have calming and anti-inflammatory effects. You place them in a stone mortar and grind them, then mix them with warm water or a little honey to form a paste. You can feel that during the grinding and mixing process, the unique, healing fragrance of the herbs begins to fill the air. Then, you use a clean, soft linen cloth to wrap this warm, herbal paste and gently apply it to the patient's red, swollen, and painful areas. You can feel that the warm, moist, fragrant touch of the herbal poultice is seeping through the skin, soothing the patient's pain, and also calming their heart, which has been filled with fear and unease from the illness. This is your work. You are a doctor, but you are more like a compassionate, ancient shaman. What you use is perhaps not science. What you use is ritual, symbolism, belief, and the ancient wisdom of balance and purification that has been passed down for thousands of years. What you can heal is perhaps not the body. What you can heal is, more often, in that desperate era shrouded by the shadow of death, the deepest yearning in people's hearts for hope and for being cared for. Now, just allow your consciousness to rest in this quiet work, a work full of healing ritual. Feel the steady weight of the wooden cane in your hand. Feel the cold glint of light reflecting off the lancet. Feel the warm and fragrant touch of the herbal poultice. Your journey will continue. You will soon discover how pale and powerless these ancient, well-intentioned remedies are in the face of the true, great plague. But for now, in this tranquility, filled with the solemn sense of healing ritual, allow your body and mind to pause for a moment, and gather your peace. The solemn sense of healing ritual still lingers in your heart. Every bloodletting, every poultice, is a silent, respectful negotiation with death. What you offer is comfort, is hope, is all the dignity you can provide as a healer. But the peace in your heart is being quietly eroded by a vast, silent sense of powerlessness. Because the tolling of the distant church bell has never ceased. Everything you have done, all your efforts, all your ancient wisdom, seems like trying to empty a rising, dark ocean of death with a small spoon. And so, in the dead of night, as you sit alone in your simple room, lit by a single candle, your consciousness begins to drift away from the grand thoughts of healing and duty, and turns instead to the smallest, most overlooked details. You begin to truly listen to the city. Listen. Between the distant tolling of the bell and the sighing of the wind outside your window, there is another sound, closer, and more fragmented. It is a dry, light sound, as if a fingernail were scratching a wooden board. It is a very fast sound, a skittering from one corner of the room to the other, almost too quick to catch. It is a ceaseless, whispering sound, that seems to come from within the walls, from above the ceiling, and even from beneath the floorboards. These sounds have always been here. But before, you never truly paid them any mind. You treated them as a natural part of this ancient city, just as you took for granted the dust, the mold, and the poverty. But now, as you truly quiet your consciousness and listen with focus, you realize that these sounds seem to be everywhere. When you make your house calls, in the sad silence after a dying patient has finally stopped moaning, you can always hear that subtle, restless sound from within the walls. When you walk the streets late at night, you always see some black, swift shadows flash past your feet and disappear into the depths of the gutters. They are the rats. The other silent, vast population of this city, the residents of the shadows. At first, like everyone else, you paid them no mind. But gradually, you begin to notice that they are different from before. Before the plague, they were timid, afraid of the light. But now, they have become exceptionally, unsettlingly, bold. You see them, in broad daylight, gathering in packs in the empty marketplace, shamelessly gnawing on the rotten, uncollected fruits and vegetables. You see them, without any fear, climbing onto the slow-moving carts that carry the departed, weaving freely among the cold bodies wrapped in white cloth. You see them multiplying at an astonishing rate. Their numbers seem to be greater than the number of living people left in this city. On a quiet night, you read in a small, anonymous pamphlet from a coastal port, a wild theory, one that most physicians would scoff at. The theory said that the plague, perhaps, did not come from the miasma in the air, but rather from the tiny, almost invisible, fleas that live on the rats. This idea is so absurd, so unbelievable. But, like a small, hard seed, it quietly takes root in your mind. You begin to observe the world with a new, sharper, almost detective-like gaze. You no longer just focus on a patient's pulse and breath. You begin to pay attention to their environment. And you discover a clear pattern, one that sends a chill down your spine. In the dirtiest, most chaotic alleys behind the granaries, the number of rats is the highest. And that is also where the plague has broken out most violently, most concentratedly. Around the fish markets near the river, where refuse is piled high in the streets, you also see swarms of rats. And the houses in those few rows have long been empty. This, perhaps, is just a coincidence. But when a coincidence repeats itself, again and again, it is no longer a coincidence. It is a cold law that you do not yet fully understand. You arrive at a new house that requires your services. It is the dilapidated cottage of a weaver. The roof has partially collapsed. There is a large hole in the wall, big enough for a dog to crawl through. The moment you step inside, you smell that familiar scent of sickness and despair. The mistress of the house is lying on a straw mat near the hearth, already at death's door. But your attention is drawn to the corner behind her. You see a pile of old, dirty rags there. And the pile of rags is moving, slightly, trembling. You hold your wooden cane and slowly approach. A rat suddenly darts out from the pile of rags and disappears into a crack in the floorboards. Immediately after, you see the head of another rat poke out from a crack in the wall, staring at you quietly with its black, emotionless eyes, like glass beads. You look down and see that the stocking on the foot of the unconscious woman has been chewed through. You finish this visit quickly. You leave behind a small sprig of rosemary and advise her family to burn all the linens she slept on. You know they won't. No one does. You walk out of the small cottage, and an immense, cold sense of powerlessness grips you. You realize that you, and all the doctors, monks, and officials in the city, may have been fighting the wrong enemy from the very beginning. You have all been waging a futile battle against the formless miasma in the air. You have used incense, prayers, and bloodletting, trying to purify the evil vapors that you cannot see or touch. And all the while, the true messengers of death have been right under your feet, inside your walls, in your sleep, brazenly scurrying about, and multiplying. They are the true, silent masters of this city. You begin to walk through this city with a heavier, more vigilant step. The cane in your hand taps the ground more frequently. You tell yourself it is to ward off evil spirits. But deep down, you know you are just trying to startle the rats that might be hiding in the shadows. You once again make a suggestion to the city hall. You plead with them to issue an order to clean the streets, to control the vermin, to improve basic sanitation. But they just look at you with tired, helpless eyes. And then they tell you, "Doctor, People are dying. We do not have time to worry about rats. You return to your lonely room above the bakery. You begin to record your journal in a new way. You no longer just write down the names and symptoms of your patients. You begin to use secret symbols to mark on your log the locations of the rat nests you have discovered. The granary. The tanner's shed. The old stable near the city wall. The church vault. You tell yourself you are doing this for the future of the city. That if anyone survives this, they will need to know where to begin cleaning, where to dig, where to burn. But deep in your heart, another, darker voice is telling you, these rats will not disappear. They are not a symptom of the plague, nor a side effect. They are the cause of this disaster, and also its consequence. They are the final, sole inheritors of this dying city. And you are merely a powerless witness, just passing through. Now, just allow your consciousness to rest in this immense, lonely silence, born from discerning a terrible truth. You are no longer afraid, you are no longer lost. You are simply, in an almost scientific, cold, and focused state, listening, and observing. Listening to the subtle, yet omnipresent whispers of death from within the walls. Observing the true source of the disaster, hidden in the shadows, overlooked by all. In this deep, solitary, and focused observation that no one else can understand, your journey will pause for a moment. You are gathering a new kind of strength, one based on fact, not on faith. Preparing for the next part of your journey, one that will be lonelier, but also, more clear-sighted. The subtle, yet omnipresent whispers from within the walls continue to linger in your mind. You have discerned a secret, a terrible truth about the nature of this disaster. But this knowledge has not brought you any power. Instead, it has pushed you into a deeper, more profound loneliness that no one can understand. For how can you explain to people, who are grief-stricken from the loss of their loved ones, that what they are fighting is perhaps not the punishment of God, nor the miasma in the air, but some tiny creatures, hidden in the shadows, that they have never paid any mind to? They would not believe you. They would only think that you, like your beaked mask, have gone mad. And so, you have chosen silence. You have hidden this secret, like a cold, heavy stone, in the bottom of your heart. And this silence has created an invisible, transparent wall between you and the suffering world around you. You begin to see the people around you with a new, more detached gaze. And you feel that their attitude toward you is also, quietly, changing. At first, when the plague had just arrived, they placed their hope in you. They called you a brave man. They looked at you with a mixture of awe and gratitude as you put on your heavy armor and walked into their homes, homes that were filled with the stench of death. But now, as death, like a tireless tide, has washed over this city again and again, the hope in their hearts has been replaced by despair. And their gratitude is being replaced by a more primal, more powerful emotion. That is, fear. And the resentment that is born from fear. Now, when you walk the streets, you feel that the streets themselves have become wider. Because when you appear, the citizens who were gathered in small groups, talking in low voices, will immediately fall silent. And then, like a school of fish startled by a stone dropped into a calm pond, they will silently retreat to the sides of the street. They clear a wide, empty path for you, a path filled with a strange silence. You walk down the middle of this path, which is exclusively for you. You can feel countless gazes, projected from the cracks of tightly shut doors and windows, landing on you. There is no longer any hope in these gazes. In its place, there is suspicion, scrutiny, and the cold judgment of people searching for a scapegoat to bear the responsibility for all their misfortunes. You pass by the bakery you once visited every day. You see the baker, upon noticing your approach, immediately lower his head, pretending to be busy arranging his already empty shelves. You pass by the inn that once warmly offered you a bowl of hot soup. You see the innkeeper's wife quickly turn her back to you. As you walk through the church square, you can even hear some children in the distance, chanting a song they made up just for you, in a strange, nursery rhyme-like tone. Crow man, stay away. Mother passed the other day. Crow man knocked and then she coughed. Now her soul is carried off. The song comes and goes with the wind. It is not loud, but it is like a series of cold, tiny needles, pricking at your heart. You do nothing. You simply pull the wide brim of your black hat a little lower. And then, you continue to walk forward, with your same steady, unchanging pace. Because you, on some level, understand them. You understand how much people, when faced with a great disaster that they can neither comprehend nor resist, need someone to blame. A tangible, specific outlet for all their fear, their grief, and their anger. And you, this mysterious outsider, dressed in strange attire, wearing an inhuman mask, who keeps company with death all day and is always surrounded by the strong scent of herbs, have become the most perfect, and indeed the only, candidate for this role. You realize that the role you are playing now is no longer just that of a doctor. You have become a symbol. A walking, black vessel that carries all the negative emotions of the entire city. An incarnation of death itself. Your very presence is now an ill omen. When you walk into a home, you no longer bring the hope of a cure. You bring the final verdict that death is near. This is the heavy, and incredibly lonely, destiny that you must bear as a guardian. You no longer try to communicate with anyone. Because you know that the compassionate and rational heart beneath your mask has been completely isolated by that black robe, and by that cold, beak-like facade. You have become the loneliest of guardians. Every day, you still leave your small room at dawn. Every day, you still walk into those desperate homes marked with a black cross. Every day, you still use your heavy wooden cane to perform your ritualistic, comforting, healings. But you no longer expect to see gratitude in anyone's eyes. You just quietly do what you must do. You are a god who has been shunned and feared by all. A silent god of death, whose only duty is to record the passing and to perform the final farewell for the departed. And when you accepted this role, your heart, in turn, achieved an unprecedented, strange, and tragic peace. You no longer need to bear the impossible expectation of saving lives. You no longer need to face those eyes, once full of hope, that were destined to be replaced by despair. You just need to be yourself. To be the only, lonely audience member in this grand, absurd, and sorrowful play, who remains clear-headed from beginning to end. And the silent undertaker, who clears the stage after the curtain falls. Now, just allow your consciousness to rest in this immense, sublime loneliness of the guardian. Feel that absolute quiet of being isolated from the entire world. Feel that deep peace, born from understanding everyone's fear with compassion. Feel that strange, transcendent freedom, that comes from accepting your destiny as a scapegoat. Your heart, like a field covered by a great snow, all the noise is buried. All that remains is a vast, quiet, sacred whiteness. Your journey is not yet over. In our next chapter, we will visit the only inner sanctuary that you have carved out for yourself in this immense solitude. But for now, in this sublime loneliness, understood by no one, belonging only to you, allow your body and mind to find a most deep and thorough rest. That sublime loneliness, understood by no one, belonging only to you, is like an invisible, cool armor, encasing your soul. You walk through the empty streets at dusk, every step so heavy, and yet so resolute. You no longer expect understanding from anyone, nor do you seek comfort from any soul. You are your own, and only, companion. Now, at last, you have returned to your simple, temporary lodging above the bakery. You use a heavy key to open the door, and then, you step inside. You bolt the door firmly from within. With that final, crisp click of the lock, you feel that you have, at last, completely shut out the entire world's turmoil, its fear, and its sorrow. This is your sanctuary. A small, lonely universe that is absolutely safe, belonging only to you. The room is dark, and very cold. But you do not immediately light a candle. You just stand there, quietly, in the darkness, allowing your eyes to slowly adjust to this familiar gloom, a darkness that brings you an immense sense of security. Then, you begin the most important ritual of your day, the solemn and slow ceremony of removing your armor. The first things you take off are the thick leather gloves, long since soaked with sweat and medicinal potions. As your hands are re-exposed to the air, you feel a cool, liberating sensation. You slowly, gently, flex your stiff, numb knuckles. Next, you untie the straps and slowly, carefully, lift the heavy, wax-soaked black robe from your shoulders. In that instant, you feel as if an invisible mountain has been removed from your back. Your entire spine seems to let out a soft, satisfied sigh. You carefully hang this robe on a hook farthest from the hearth, letting it, and all the sense of death and sorrow that cling to it, be far away from you. Then, you take off your tall boots, and you remove your wide-brimmed hat. Finally, you raise your hands, now trembling slightly as feeling returns to them, to untie the straps of that beaked mask, the mask that has been pressed tightly against your face for the entire day. You take it off. And you take a deep, deep breath. What you smell is no longer that overpowering, dizzying, safe aroma of mixed spices. What you smell is the scent of your own room, a mixture of old books, dust, and a faint mustiness. It is an aroma that is incredibly real, and incredibly dear. Your face feels red and sore from the pressure of the mask straps. Your eyes, too, are tired from looking at the world through two red glass lenses for so long. But you feel that you have, at last, become a person again. You walk to a corner of the room, where a basin of clear, cold well water has been prepared. You immerse your hands, and then your face, into this cold water. You feel the cool, pure sensation washing away all the grime and sweat from your skin. And it feels as if it is also washing away the heavy sorrow and despair that has clung to your soul. You use a coarse linen towel to dry your face. Then, you change into a set of clean, soft, ordinary clothes. After all this is done, you come to your small desk, a desk made from a few wooden planks. You strike a match and light the single, precious beeswax candle on the desk. A small, warm, orange-yellow flame begins to quietly dance before your eyes. This tiny flame instantly dispels the cold darkness of the entire room. It creates a small, warm, luminous enclosure around you, a world of light that belongs only to you. You sit down, quietly. And you do nothing, just silently watch the dancing flame before you. You see that its light, though faint, is so very resolute. It is quietly, tenaciously, waging a silent, yet incredibly stubborn, battle against the boundless darkness that surrounds it. Your own breathing gradually becomes like the flickering of this flame, steady, quiet, and full of life. After a long while, you pick up your journal from the desk, the one with the thick leather cover, the one that is almost completely full. You also pick up your quill pen, its tip already a bit worn from use. By the light of this single, swaying candle, you begin to write. You are not recording the heartbreaking numbers of the dead. You are not describing the nauseating symptoms of the patients. You are, with an almost scientific, calm and objective pen, recording all of your observations from the day. You record that near the slaughterhouse in the south of the city, the miasma in the air seems to be a bit thicker than elsewhere. You record that along the banks of the canal to the east, the activity of the rats seems to be more rampant than elsewhere. You record that the young children, although their symptoms are lighter than the adults, are very likely the more hidden carriers of the disease. You also record the effects of the various remedies you tried today. Fumigation with juniper seems to ease the patient's breathing. Bloodletting, its psychological comfort far outweighs its practical healing effect. Next, must apply to the city hall for more medicinal leeches. This process of writing, of recording, is, for you, a unique form of healing. It allows you to detach from the immense, chaotic, and emotionally impactful experiences of the day. It allows you to take those disordered, desperate fragments, and reorganize them, giving them a rational, analyzable, logical order. This is a powerful, spiritual practice of rebuilding your inner order in the midst of utter chaos. After finishing your journal, you eat a small piece of hard, dark bread. You drink a mouthful of cheap, slightly sour wine. Then, you blow out the candle. The room is once again plunged into darkness. But this time, you no longer feel cold and lonely. Because you know that even in the deepest darkness, you can still light a candle for yourself, a candle that is faint, yet filled with hope and reason. Now, just allow your consciousness to rest in this simple, yet absolutely safe, dark room of the plague doctor. Feel that deep relaxation of setting down a heavy burden, after a full day of rushing about in despair. Feel that purifying, refreshing sensation of the clear, cold water washing away all your fatigue. And also feel that incomparable, warm, focused tranquility, brought to you by that single, small candle, burning for you alone in the darkness. Your journey is approaching its end. You are about to witness, with your own eyes, the final fading of this long plague. But for now, in this undisturbed, quiet solitude that belongs only to you, allow your body and mind to find a most precious, deep rest, one that restores your inner order. That single, small candle, burning for you alone in the dark room, its light faint yet incredibly resolute, has bestowed upon you a moment of profound, inner peace. You rest in this light, this sanctuary you have created for yourself. Now, you feel that the candle has finally burned down to its end. The last tiny flame gives a gentle flicker, and then, it transforms into a thin, curling wisp of smoke, rising and dissipating into the air. The room is once again plunged into darkness. But this time, there is no fear in your heart. Because you can feel a new, more expansive light, quietly seeping in from your small, dust-covered window. It is not the light of a candle. It is the light of dawn. You slowly sit up from your simple bed. You walk to the window and gently push open the heavy wooden shutter, which you have not opened for a very long time. A breath of fresh morning air, carrying the scent of damp dew, rushes in, filling your entire lungs. You take a deep breath. You notice that the thick, sweetish odor of death and decay that once permeated the air is now, slowly, growing thinner. You see, on the distant horizon, a faint, rose-colored glow, striving to break through the heavy, gray clouds. You hear the tolling of the distant church bell. But its rhythm seems to be no longer as dense, as heavy as before, no longer the constant funeral knell for the entire city. Its sound has become more sparse, more distant. You realize that this long, nightmarish plague, its powerful, suffocating momentum, has finally begun to slowly recede. It is like a great wildfire that once ravaged an entire forest. And now, that flame has finally begun to weaken, leaving only some last, flickering embers on the scorched earth. You, once again, put on your black robe and mask, an attire so familiar it is like your second skin. But your mood today is subtly different. You no longer feel like a lonely soldier, heading into a battle you are destined to lose. You feel more like a patient gardener, who, after the great fire has subsided, walks into a burned forest to search for the small, surviving, green shoots of new life. You walk through the empty streets at dawn. You see that some of the doors, once tightly shut and marked with a black cross, have been reopened. You see a baker, his face still haggard, but his eyes showing a spark of life, sweeping away the months of accumulated leaves and dust in front of his shop. You smell, in the air, in addition to the lingering aftertaste of death, a new aroma, the warm and rustic scent of baking bread. You continue to walk forward. You hear, from the distant blacksmith's shop, that familiar, crisp, rhythmic sound of a hammer striking an anvil once more. The sound is no longer as constant and urgent as before, when he was forging nails for coffins day and night. The sound has become more leisurely, more hopeful. Perhaps he is repairing a plow for his neighbor. You even hear a sound that you have not heard for months, perhaps even years. It is the crisp, bell-like sound of a child's laughter, coming from the depths of a small alleyway. The laughter is so very cautious, so very tentative. As if it, too, is afraid of disturbing the sad souls that have not yet departed from this city. But it is, undeniably, laughter. It is the first, incredibly fragile, yet incredibly beautiful, small flower, to grow from this scorched earth, covered by the embers of death. Your work is not yet over. You still need to make your rounds to the homes where patients remain. You still need to go to the abandoned monasteries, which have been used as temporary pest houses, to care for those unfortunate souls still fighting their final battle with the disease. But you feel that your role is changing. You are no longer just a desperate comforter. You are beginning to become a true healer. You use the precious experience, based on observation, that you have accumulated during this disaster, to guide the survivors. You teach them how to use fire to purify the contaminated clothing and bedding of the deceased. You teach them how to use herbs and clean water to cleanse their bodies and their homes. And you teach them the most important thing of all, isolation. Separating the healthy from those who are still sick, to cut off that invisible chain that spreads death. You see that more and more people are beginning to look at you with a new, trusting gaze. They no longer see you as an ominous crow that brings bad luck. They are beginning to see you as a guardian spirit, one who truly possesses the precious wisdom that can conquer death. Of course, death still occurs. But you feel that its once unstoppable, immense power is being weakened, bit by bit. You see the survivors beginning to organize themselves spontaneously. They clean the refuse from the streets, they repair the damaged houses. With a quiet and resilient posture, they begin the long process of rebuilding this city. Hope, just like the small, green shoots that re-emerge from the scorched earth in a burned forest. It is faint, it is fragile, but it represents an unbeatable, powerful force, belonging to life itself. Now, just allow your consciousness to rest in this unique, hopeful tranquility of the aftermath. Feel the warmth of that first ray of sun, piercing through the long gloom, as it shines upon your body. Feel the freshness of that first breeze, blowing away the stench of death, as it caresses your cheek. Feel that deep respect and emotion for life itself, so incredibly precious, that is reawakened after a long and immense despair. Your journey is approaching its end. In the final chapter, we will experience together how you, as a survivor, will face and heal the indelible scars left in the depths of your memory. That newborn hope, which is like the last ember, faint, yet radiating a resolute light in the darkness, is quietly warming your soul. You can feel the pulse of this city, bit by bit, beginning to beat again. You, as a direct witness and survivor of this disaster, have finally reached the moment when you can take off your heavy, black armor. You return to your simple, small room. For the last time, you take off the heavy robe, saturated with wax, sweat, and memory. For the last time, you pull the worn, cracked leather gloves from your hands. And then, you reach up, with a gesture that is both incredibly solemn and incredibly resolute, and you take that strange, beaked mask from your face. This time, you do not hang it up. You take it, along with the robe and the gloves, and you toss it into the flames of the hearth. You watch as the roaring flames instantly consume them. You smell the acrid scent of burning leather and wax filling the air. You just watch, quietly. Watching as your past identity, that of the plague doctor, turns to ash, bit by bit, in the fire. When the flames finally die down, you feel an unprecedented, complete sense of relief. But, after this tangible armor has been shed, your heart feels a new, immense emptiness. You walk to the small, cracked bronze mirror in your room and look at your reflection. What you see is a stranger, a man completely changed by suffering. You see that his once clear eyes are now hollow and tired, filled with an unspeakable, heavy sorrow. You see that his once full cheeks are now deeply sunken, his cheekbones high and sharp. You see that the deep lines on his face, etched by the straps of the mask, will perhaps never disappear. What you see is your own ghost. The shadow of the man you used to be, a survivor of that great death. The plague has finally, completely, passed. The city is recovering its vitality at an astonishing rate. You walk on the streets that were once so silent. You see that the shops, once boarded up, have all reopened. You hear the calls of the merchants, the hammering of the artisans, and the conversation of the housewives, all blending once more into a beautiful symphony of worldly life. You see that the surviving children finally dare to chase and play with abandon in the streets. Their laughter is so crisp, so carefree, as if that terrible disaster had never happened. The entire city is trying its best to forget. To forget that dark period, filled with fear and death. But you cannot forget. You see that the survivors, when they see you, their eyes reveal a very complex emotion, a mixture of gratitude, pity, but also more of an undeniable fear and distance. They will nod to you in greeting. But their steps will subconsciously quicken, putting distance between you and them. Because, in their eyes, you are a living monument to that dark history they do not wish to recall. Your very presence is a reminder of everything that happened. You understand them. And so, you also choose to keep your distance from them. You have become a lonely, out-of-place, silent ghost in this bustling, reviving city. The noise of the day has nothing to do with you. And when night falls once more, the ghosts of the past, which you have locked in the bottom of your heart, will quietly come to visit you. You lie in bed, unable to sleep. You close your eyes, and you can see the desperate faces of those you could not save. You can hear the final, painful groans and the last, faint gasps of breath whispered in your ear. You can even smell that sweetish, nauseating odor of sickness and death, as if it still lingers deep within your nostrils. You are a survivor. But you are also a patient, one who is permanently imprisoned by that immense trauma. You begin your own long, lonely journey of healing. You no longer have anything to do with the practice of healing others. You simply, in a quieter, more observational way, begin to re-experience this reviving world. In the early morning, you will go to the riverbank, where no one else is around, and quietly watch the new, vibrant sun slowly rise from the horizon. You feel its warm, golden light shining upon your body, dispelling the cold shadows of the past that linger in your heart. In the afternoon, you will walk into a small church that was spared from the fires and the plague. You are not there to pray. You just sit quietly on an empty pew. You watch the sunlight, filtering through the stained glass windows, casting flowing, rainbow-like patches of light on the ancient stone pillars. You listen to the sacred, absolute silence within the church, a silence that seems to make time itself stand still. And you also begin to share your experience, in a very calm, unemotional, and objective way, with those who are willing to listen. You do not recount the horrifying details that would cause nightmares. You recount the precious lessons about life itself that you learned during that great disaster. You speak of how important it is to maintain cleanliness. You speak of how necessary it is to practice isolation. You speak of how, in the face of despair, the simplest act of kindness and care between people possesses such great power. You see the young, new generation of doctors, listening to your account with eyes full of respect. You feel that you are transforming your personal, painful trauma into valuable wisdom for the entire community. And in this process of transformation, you feel that the hard, scarred wounds in your heart are also, bit by bit, becoming softer. Finally, you gather all of your journals and notes, and you leave them, anonymously, at the city's newly established medical college. And then, on an ordinary, sunny morning, you put a small, simple satchel on your back, and all by yourself, you leave this city that you once fought for, this city that is now being completely reborn. You do not know where your next destination will be. You no longer care if your name will be remembered by anyone. You just want to once again become an ordinary, free person, one who can feel the sun and the wind. Your journey, at this point, has reached its perfect conclusion. Now, allow your consciousness, along with this nameless guardian who has finally found inner peace, to feel that final, complete release. Feel that ultimate lightness of body and soul, after setting down all the heavy memories and responsibilities. Feel that most profound, most gentle love, full of compassion and respect, for life itself. In this final, complete, and luminous peace, allow your body and mind to receive the most perfect, the most final, the most eternal rest. Good night, my dear friend. Our grand epic of suffering and resilience is now, completely, at an end. It is time, now, for you to enter your own, most peaceful, most sweet dreamland. Sleep now. Rest assuredly, and sleep.